Welcome back, folks. MTG Joe here. Today, we're going to be doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. For this particular video, we're going to be looking at the historic best of one format. If you're looking for best of three, Explorer, Standard, just check out the playlist. We try to come out with a new video once a week, provided there is enough data. So this particular week, I did have to kind of play around with the filters. So we are going to be looking predominantly at the data set leading up to about a month of data, about 3 weeks prior to the release of March of the Machines. And then March of the Machines came out on the 9th. Sorry, not March of the Machines Aftermath came out on the 9th. And while there's a couple new cards that might see play, it's still too early, at least in the Eternal formats, to get a large enough population size. Even in Standard, it was a little hit or miss for this first week's worth of videos, given it usually takes about a week to 2 weeks to get a nice aggregation of data. We'll kind of highlight that, but I wanted to cover some of the decks here. So we are looking at Untapped GG, what you see on the screen. Companion tool tracks win rates, loss rates, your deck collections, whole bunch of cool features, aggregates the data, gives us a bunch of cool stats. Link is in the video description if you want to get started today with Untapped. As well, I will paste all these deck lists along with timestamps so you can navigate and just copy paste to your heart's content. So like I said, most of the data is April 18th to May 9th, with one data set looking at May 9th to the 15th, and I'll highlight that deck separately. We're looking Diamond to Mythic rank. For that span, there's about 23,000 games of Magic played. So we'll jump into it. The top deck is actually from the more recent data set, May 9th to now. It's at 65.5%. It is a Bant blue, white, green Hammertime deck. So Hammertime is a very popular modern deck, and it's built around the interaction of Sigarda's Age, which substitutes the equipped cost, and you can do things with flash. So when an equipment enters the battlefield, or an aura, in this case it's just equipments in this deck, you can auto-equip it to a creature. So what you're able to do is use Colossal Hammer, which is a 1 mana, target creature gets plus 10/10 and loses flying, but it usually has a downside, it costs 8 to equip. Most decks aren't getting to 8 mana, especially in best of 1. But with Sigarda's Aid, it's basically 1 mana, give your creature a plus 10/10 boost. So it's kind of like a combo kill your opponent out of nowhere. You also then have Kemba's Outfitter, which is a alchemy card that can substitute the equipped cost of either an equipment on the field or in your hand to 1 mana. So 1 mana is a lot more palatable to equip than going with 8 mana. So you use that, you have Retrofitter Foundry, Shadow Sphere as another equipment, and then it's got the Retrofitter Foundry package. So Retrofitter Foundry, Ornithopter to make 4/4s, get some value there. So, like, it gives you some value in terms of artifacts, make you extra bodies if needed. You have Esper Sentinel for tax effects. You have Belt of Giant Strength, which is basically another Colossal Hammer adjacent card. This was from the Baldur Gates set. So 2 mana, equipped creatures, power and toughness becomes 10/10. So notably, if you have 2 of these, they don't stack. But if you have 1 of these, it gives your base creature 10/10, and then you can equip the Colossal Hammer and give it another 10/10. And then the equip cost on this gets reduced by the creature's power. So if you already have a 10/10, its equip becomes 0. So neat little synergy there. We also have Invisible Stalker from Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. So this was a very powerful card back in the day. When I first started playing Standard in paper, there was a Bant auras with like Geist of Saint Draft and stuff like that. So 2 mana, hexproof, and can't be blocked. Very powerful keywords when you're throwing big power on. You have Kemba here, which is very similar. So when you cast Cats, you get to equipped, it gives your other equipped creatures a bonus and power, and then it can make cat tokens. So this is another way to circumvent the equip cost. And then Reality Chip for card advantage, kind of playing in the shell there. From there, we then go to Izzet Belcher. So all these other decks are from the 18th to the 9th, so assume that there's no Aftermath cards played in here, but March of the Machine would be present. So Belcher is a combo deck. It's based around Garblin Char Belcher. So the goal of the deck is to get out the Belcher and activate it. In this deck, you're playing all dual face cards. So your lands are considered spells while they're in the deck. So when you activate Belcher, you basically flip your entire deck, and then you deal damage equal to the number of cards in your deck. You can get it out as early as turn 3. So if you use Strike It Rich, To make a treasure, you cast Iron Crag Feet. You have enough mana to cast Belcher and activate at the same turn. Otherwise, you can transform any of your tokens that are treasure tokens with Indomitable Creativity to always find the Belcher, because it's the only artifact in the deck. So it's pretty much the deck. The rest of the cards are just drawing to the Belcher or your combo, or removal for your opponent's spells. This deck did get a little bit of a budget improvement with Faithless Looting being reprinted at uncommon as opposed to rare. From there, we go to Rakdos Midrange, 62.5%. So if you got Rakdos cards in Standard, Explorer, Pioneer, whatever, it's pretty much just lift and shift. The big things that this deck gets in the historic format is Inquisition of Kozilek, a 1-mana discard mana value 3 or less, which provides some utility. You have Kroxa in here, similar to the Explorer version. You also have Molten Impact, which is one of the best red removal spells. 4 damage, but you can kind of save away some of your extra damage. And then your next spell that you cast, you can tack on that damage. Some Graveyard Hate, Seasoned Pyromancer, which helps you draw and discard. So usually what happens is, in a deck like this, if you have late game cards like, you know, it's turn 5, turn 6, you draw Inquisition, your opponent might be out of cards in hand. Seasoned Pyromancer turns those into tokens. You also have Crucius, which is arguably the best card in Historic, that can also upgrade any of your cards there. And then Sheoldred kind of mixed into that. We then go to Mono Red Aggro. So this is a deck that's the Embercleave version. You sometimes see Burn versions. So just very creature focused. Ringleader, Kumano, Firebrand, Burning Tree, Robber. Annex gets bigger with the more red spells, anti-life gain, and then you have like the Torbrand Cleave version. Whole bunch of utility lands mixed into there as well. You basically use Reckless Ringleader to give something haste. You're turning creatures sideways, trying to get cleave out as early as possible in this particular deck. From there, we go to Izzet Wizards. So 61% win rate, and this is a Wizards tribal deck built around the buffed Symmetry Sage. So with this deck here, you're basically casting Wizards and then playing spells. You can boost the power of Dreadhorde Arcanist either with the Symmetry Sage or the Balmor. That lets you flash back more expensive spells from your graveyard. You're also able to give haste and kind of burst damage with Reckless Charge in here. You have a lot of removal and just breach in terms of burn, so Play with Fire, Static Discharge, and Wizard's Lightning. Jangantha Companion in this deck as well. We then move to Dimir Mill, which is surprisingly high win rate at 58%. Notably, they're finally playing removal spells. A lot of these times they just go straight linear like Mill and forget to actually interact with your opponent's board, but Mesmeric Orb to whenever a permanent becomes untapped, you get to Mill. So this kind of forces your opponent, if they're attacking, tapping lands, it forces some consistent Mill. You have Mill 10 with Glimpse the Unthinkable. You have the Rune Crab in here. Tasha's Hideous Laughter also does exile, and against a lot of these low-cost decks, can take out big chunks of their actual deck as well. You also have Jace Perfected Mind for card advantage, as well as just additional mill in terms of that. Lots of removal in the deck as well to deal with some of the early spells. Founding of the Third Path can rebuy any of your kind of removal or mill style effects. And then lastly, Selesnya, they're calling it Angels. This is an Angels. It's the Splinter Twin, if you would, the Scurry-Oak combo. So Scurry-Oak, Heliod, and anything that gains a life when it enters the battlefield, a Johnny's Welcome, Luminarch Veteran, or Soul Warden, gains you infinite life and infinite tokens. How it works is creature enters the battlefield, gains you life, Heliod puts a counter on Scurry-Oak, which makes a creature, which gains you life, which puts a counter on Scurry-Oak, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Click, 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 click. You could kind of do it at instant speed with Collected Company, so you could do it at your opponent's end step as well. You have the backup plan of just very large Voice of the Blessed or Trelasara that also provides some utility, as well as a one-sided board wipe with a Johnny Strength of the Pride. Some removal in Skyclave Apparition in case your opponent has something like Ferocidon or something of that nature. There's still the various artifact decks, Boros, Thopter, stuff like that. They didn't really show up in the stats this week. Could be that people just aren't playing it at the same volume. Historic in general, we just haven't had a huge amount of games in recent. I've been having trouble getting enough aggregate data to come out with these on the weekly basis. But there is an Arena I think it is the Arena Open is historic, or the qualifier. One of the upcoming like in client tournaments is historic, so we should see an injection of people trying out the format. There's also like the occasional reanimator piles that you might run into. So if you're looking for anything like that, well, we don't have like extensive stats, let me know in the comments and I could try to find a deck list for some of those other archetypes if you're interested. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.